The following presentation was recorded live for the International Association of Square Dance Callers 19th Annual Convention. We take you live to Virginia Beach, Virginia, where our session is just getting underway.
The title of this session is The Importance of Communication in Being Successful. Our speakers are Jim and Lynnea Wheeler. Lynnea is a nursing supervisor for Mercy Home Care in Buffalo, New York, and has been instrumental in developing new programs in the changing field of home health care. She has served as caller's wife and assistant business manager for the last 8 years. Jim called his first square dance in 1958 and has been a member of CALLERLAB since 1979. He is a department chair at Erie Community College and teaches communication and interpersonal relationships. He is also on the staff of the American Institute of Banking and has served as a consultant to organizations throughout the United States and Canada, presenting seminars and workshops in the areas of communication, public relations, and interpersonal relationships. He has been a guest speaker at professional, civic, and social functions from Florida to Michigan, Nevada to Massachusetts, has made numerous presentations at the CALLERLAB Partner Sessions, and was the featured speaker at the opening sessions of CALLERLAB 91 and 92. Jim and Lynnea Wheeler reside in Orchard Park, New York, and have 4 adult children. They both agree that they have a lot of fun serving as each other's model on which they can practice communicating with a difficult person. Let's give a welcome to Jim and Lynnea Wheeler.
Go ahead, dear.
No, you go ahead. You start.
I said go ahead. You start.
No, I don't want to start. You start.
We talked about this before. You start.
I'm really nervous.
Honey, you're embarrassing us. Start. Do it. Do it now. I think I have a difficult person that I had better learn to communicate with. Let's see if we can do that again. Go ahead, dear. Start.
I don't want to start. You start.
I hear you telling me that you want me to start. We had discussed this before. You start.
I know we discussed this, but I get butterflies and I get so nervous. I really wish you'd start.
Honey, remember we rehearsed it, and we thought that the butterflies would go away. You get up there first and you do it. And that way you'll feel much more relaxed for the rest of the session. Okay?
We did discuss it.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. I guess I need to start.
Yeah, good. Good girl.
We did discuss it, and I am starting. I have a very short beginning. Here's Jim.
Thank you. We all communicate in different ways, and we all have different styles of communicating. We all run into situations where we have the potential of being a difficult person. As a matter of fact, at times we are always somebody's difficult person. It's recognizing the differences and trying to find common ground and developing that common ground when we encounter that difficult person. What we hope to be accomplishing in this brief session is to give you some communication strategies that you can use when you find yourself confronted with that difficult person. Of course, if they've been to a session on how to communicate with difficult people, then you'll have to go to another session on how to deal with difficult people who've learned how to deal with difficult people. And we're working on that, and we'll hope to have that next year in Louisville. When you encounter a difficult person, you have 4 choices. You can stand there and take it, and in some cases fight back. You can elect to withdraw, that's run away, or create a shell, so that in essence, you don't have to confront that difficult person. The third choice is to change that person's attitude. That's very difficult to do. And attitudes are something that require years of work. Or the fourth choice is to change your behavior when communicating with a difficult person. It requires a couple of things on your part. It requires that you have the commitment to your objective. Now, we get difficult people all the time. As we said, we're each other's difficult person sometimes. But is it worth the effort? So we just give in, the situation goes on, and we turn around, and things are done. However, if you want to, and have the desire, and are willing to give up the time and the commitment, you can learn to use your communication style and the communication style of the difficult person. How are we doing? Everybody got handouts back there? Still missing some in the back? Okay.
Those of you who have handouts, if you will turn to the second page of your handout, you will find a survey entitled, "What kind of difficult person are you?" This survey is voluntary. You have the opportunity to take it if you choose to take it. It will help you find out exactly where you fall in this difficult person business. It is totally confidential. It's used by you. Doesn't have to be shared with anyone. Jim and I have chosen to share ours with you so that we have some examples to work with. As you take this, it will probably come out one way today. It may come out a different way another day, depending on the way you feel at this moment right now. These are tendencies. They're not, nothing's ironclad in this. So if you take your survey, for the moment focus just on you, fill out the columns that apply to you, A1, B1, C1, D1, and then total those columns, and we'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Okay. Now if you'd like to take that same survey, take columns A2, B2, C2, and D2, and fill those out for a person that you might consider to be your difficult person. And we'll give you a couple minutes to do that. This person might have the same characteristics that you do. They may or they may not.
Now, let's see if we can locate ourselves. What communication style are you? And we handed out the scoring sheet after we, or the scoring grid after we gave you the handout so that you couldn't cheat and figure out how to score it and then say, ooh, I want to be this kind of person. First of all, when you do arrive at a communication style, keep in mind there are no right ones, there are no wrong ones. Each style has some strength, and each style also has some weaknesses. Now, if you would, total up the score in column A1. And you should come up with a number between 0 and 10. Yes? You didn't get the sheets back there. Okay. The scoring grids? Take the total of the score in column A1 and circle the corresponding number on the horizontal line on the scoring grid. The line that's labeled passive on the left side and aggressive on the right side. That's called our assertiveness line. Some of you will be at 0, some of you will be at 10, and a whole bunch of people in between. Then take the total from the column labeled D1 and circle the corresponding number on the vertical line on the scoring grid. That's called the focus line. It has task at the bottom and task at the top and people on the bottom. That is your orientation. Now, you're orientated more towards accomplishing tasks or more towards people and people's needs. Then connect those 2 points with a straight line, and you will form either one of 2 geometric figures. It'll either be a triangle, or it'll be a straight line that is vertical or horizontal. Now, in my case, I have a 5 on the assertiveness line. That puts me right in the middle, at least at the time I did the survey. And I have a 0 on the people, which means I never get anything done. So I have a straight line going right up and down, following the vertical line. Now, my difficult person, Lynnea.
And sometimes his difficult person. On the assertiveness line, I have a 3, which puts me over on the passive end. And on the focus line, task people, I have a 6. Puts me a little more toward task orientation than people.
Of course, I really think it's a lot more towards tasking. You are super. Either that or very unsure of yourself. Let's find out where the difficult person lies in relationship to you. Take the score from column A2. And instead of circling the number on the horizontal axis, put an X through that number so we can differentiate between your score and the score of the difficult person. So for column A2, take that number and place it on the horizontal line. For column D2, put an X through the corresponding number on the vertical line. If they coincide, if your score and your difficult person score coincide, then chances are that person really isn't so difficult after all. And what you're doing is looking in a mirror. What's that, Kathy? You're way at the top, stands at the bottom, and... We have labeled each of the quadrants on your scoring matrix. And if you will turn to the 3rd page in your handout, you will see 4 boxes or 4 quadrants labeled dictator, detailer, doubter, and dazzler. Where your triangle is located, that's the label we're going to put on you. You say, well, I don't want to be a dictator. I'm not a dictator. Guess what, folks? If you say, I'm not a dictator, that sure sounds like a dictator to me. Because a dictator is task-focused. That means a high score, or high score on the vertical line, and aggressive. You're over to the right, towards aggressiveness. The detailer is one who likes to get things done right. The dictator, on the other hand, just wants to get things done. The doubter is one who is people-focused, lower left-hand quadrant, and rather passive when it comes to assertiveness. They like to get along with people. They want everybody to be happy. The dazzler, lower right-hand quadrant, is very people-focused also, and aggressive, sometimes called the entertainer. Of course, most of us in here don't know anybody in the entertainment field. But it has nothing to do with occupations. Remember, it's situational. And that's why I was very glad to see that my score came out in the middle when it comes to passiveness versus aggressiveness. Because sometimes I have to be very aggressive and sometimes I have to be very passive. It's all a matter of adaptation. Most people will exhibit these behaviors, all of the behaviors, at various times. The key to dealing with a difficult person is recognizing where is the difficult person and where am I. If you have, for example, a 10 and a 10, where's my grid? A 10 and a 10, that puts you about as high on the dictator side as you can go. So if you are there, anybody who scores lower on any scale will appear to be either a detailer, a doubter, or a dazzler, because it's going to be relative. They don't necessarily have to be in a certain quadrant. They have to have a tendency to lean in that direction. In dealing with a difficult person, there are some strategies you should be aware of, and we're going to try to give you some of those now. Basically, the whole concept revolves around moving toward the difficult person's communication style, grabbing on to that person, figuratively, and bringing them back toward your style. You've had those situations. I don't like the word. Boy, you are really sounding nasty. And all you're doing by criticizing is pushing them further away. So what we're saying is move toward that person and their style, grab onto that style for a few moments, and bring them back to where you feel comfortable. You'll notice in the demonstration, in our opening, I got a little more upset because Lynnea wouldn't start, which resulted in no task accomplishment. Remember, that's our objective. But to accomplish the task, I changed a little bit, moved a little more to the way she was communicating, a little more understanding, a little more empathy, and got the task accomplished. It works in real life as well as in demonstrations. But remember what I said about time and commitment and effort. You've got to be willing to do that if you have elected to deal with a difficult, communicate and deal with a difficult person. We move towards a difficult person and we take hold and we bring them back using some techniques called backtracking, leveling, and mirroring. Backtracking. She thinks she's nervous. Hon, I don't really feel like going off. I know we said we go out for dinner, but I don't really feel like going out for dinner.
What I hear you saying is that you really don't want to go out to dinner. Is that right?
Well, yeah, kind of. What she was doing was repeating back the words or as close to the words as she possibly could. Honey, I don't really feel like going out for dinner.
What I hear you saying is that you don't really want to go out to dinner.
What I hear you saying is it's a non-offensive way of repeating back the words the person used. Oftentimes, the person speaking doesn't know the words that they used. Well, I could have changed and said, well, yeah, I do want to go out for dinner, but I really don't want to go out to dinner with the folks we'd planned on going to dinner with, which is totally different than not wanting to go out to dinner. But all I said was, I really don't feel like going out for dinner. I heard the words. I said, well, maybe that's not what I meant. The second technique is leveling. Lynnea, could you tell the people what leveling is? Oh, you say that?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, you say that.
Jim.
Yes.
Maybe you could tell the people what leveling is if you feel like you want to do that?
You're saying you want me to tell people what leveling is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. That's leveling. Leveling refers to the relationship, the physical relationship of eye contact. We want to avoid and get rid of that superior subordinate relationship that some people have. You like someone to stand over the top of you and talk to you? No, it's very uncomfortable. Okay, so we level. The third technique, mirroring, is when a person follows the same body language as you, assumes the same posture. One of us is too close, probably me. Assumes the same posture, takes on the same gestures. Are you mocking me?
No, I'm mirroring. Well, is there a difference?
There's a big difference. You're mocking me.
I thought I was mirroring you.
Oh. The difference between mocking and mirroring is a time delay. When two people begin to talk, we find that there will be a tendency to use the same facial expressions, to use the same gestures, but when you mirror, you wait. You take time. So when you respond, she will gesture. We turn to face each other. Body language is so important. Body language is so important. As I mentioned in the opening address, 93% of a message is nonverbal communication. The tone of voice, the way we stand, our gestures, our eye contact. And many people communicate without even saying words. Those of you that have been married for any longer than 3 or 4 days, you know what the other person is thinking. You say, ooh, we got ESP. No, you've read the body language. You can sense when the excitement is starting. There's probably only one, I would like to think there was only one person in the theater this morning that knew when I was nervous or knew when things weren't going quite right, and she picked up on it. She knows my body language. She knows my voice. So when you mirror somebody, you want to imitate their body language, their gestures, but not in a mocking fashion. What's next? So when you are working with a difficult person, backtrack, level, and mirror. People will tend to do those things that are around them, right? And you just smile. Do I have a good participant? Here's another one. I smile at you, you smile back at me. The power of nonverbals. How many have done this thing with the circle, the finger and the arm? Oh, we got a whole new crowd here. Oh my! I could have done the same thing I did last year. Here's what I'd like you take it. I want you to watch very closely. Take your left hand, raise it up in the air, and put the finger and the thumb together to form a small circle. Now, can you all see me up here? Can you all see that? Okay, good. Now, very quickly, go ahead and put it on your chin. Go. Stop. Do not move it. How many have it on their chin? How many have it on their cheek? People tend to believe what they see rather than what they hear. Backtracking, leveling, and mirroring all incorporate that concept. People will believe what they see rather than what they hear. Let's do a little demonstration for them on how a doubter would handle a dictator. Am I the doubter? Oh, I'm the dictator. Okay.
We won't change roles just for today.
Hi, honey.
Hi.
Rough day at work. Boy, I'll tell you. One more of these days, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
Oh, I'm sorry you had a rough day.
Yeah.
I'm also sorry. I have to ask you, we really need to work on the flyers for the festival. I know it's a bad day.
I don't want to work. I don't want to worry about that stuff. I've had enough of. I just don't want. I just want to sit back and relax. You do the flyers. You're competent enough. Do it. Just get it done.
What I hear you saying is that you want me to work on the flyers.
Yes.
I will be glad to work on the flyers, but I really need your input.
Look, everybody wants my input today. I'm tired.
I know you're tired. I hear that you're tired, and I can see that you're tired. I need your input from a square dance caller's perspective. Once I get that, the flyers are no problem.
Why a square dance caller's perspective?
Because I'm working on the program.
Oh, okay. So if we sit down together for a couple minutes, then I give you the program, then you can get the flyers all put together, and things will get done, right?
I sure can, right away.
Oh, super. Good. I'm glad of that. Does it work that way all the time? No. The first time, maybe not. The second time, the third time, better chance. The fourth time, it will start to be consistent. What happens if she remains the doubter? Very passive. Nothing gets done. Or, as it sometimes happened, she does the flyers. They go to the printer. $47.50 later, they're wrong. I say they're wrong. Why didn't you ask me about the program before you did the flyers? So at least we've tried to avoid that task. We've tried to avoid that disaster. If you will turn to the last page in your handout, entitled Recognizing Difficult People. We're going to take a look at the characteristics and the various styles, the behaviors, and the coping strategies with... You got it figured out, Stan?
Thanks.
Is it the machine?
Yeah.
Because I think there's only one that's hooked up to that. No, that hasn't changed mine, but...
It was me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
I want to take a look at the behaviors, the characteristics, and the coping strategies of the various difficult people. Again, let me remind you, there are no right styles, there are no wrong styles. All we've done is locate people and how they communicate at various times. The dictator.
Okay, the dictator has the desire to get things done. They want to be in control. They want them done now. They are very confident people. Things don't go their way, they scream, they blow up, they throw tantrums, and they can tend to be a little arrogant.
How do you cope with a dictator? Support their task. Remember, they're very task-oriented. They have a goal, they have objective. They want to get there, and they want to get there now. So reassure them that we will accomplish the task. Be very direct. Be very assertive. Notice what I just mentioned. Task. I got to do it backwards. And assertiveness. Okay, so you're moving toward their behavior. When you get there, then you can bring them back, just as Lynnea did a few minutes ago. Okay, so do it in a very business-like fashion. What about the detailer?
Okay, the detailer wants to get things done right. They are very attentive to details, very systematic and direct and accurate. Under pressure, they might clam up, they might withdraw. You won't get any place if that happens.
How do you cope with a detailer? They listen to logic. They listen to numbers. They listen to reasoning. They listen to facts. And they want to hear the facts. They want to get things done, but they want to make sure that they get done right. So you proceed with them very slowly. Remember, they're task-oriented, but they're also passive. So think task, think passiveness, think details, think lots of structure. Give them an outline, a verbal outline if necessary. And if you're going to present new ideas to them, make sure that you bring in an old idea and then embellish on the old one. And before you know it, you got the new idea presented to the detailer. What about the, well, what can we, is there anything you can tell them, maybe, you think you could tell them about the doubter?
I think I could. The doubter is very, very high on the people end. They want to please people. They want approval. They're usually agreeable, caring, considerate. Under pressure, they might give in, become a doormat. Also can tend to be a little passively aggressive.
What's passively aggressive? They find a shell and they spin a cocoon rapidly to the point where you can't communicate with them anymore. So they become passive very aggressively, quickly. And so the doubter, you got to get to them soon. We're talking when they're under pressure, because otherwise they will literally clam up and you've lost all contact. You do that through, expressing sincerity. Well, I'm glad to see that you're really concerned, hon. We'll take some time, slow down, okay? Stay people focused. We'll take some time. Things will get done. It'll be okay. Okay? Notice I get a little less assertive. If I get assertive with that doubter, bingo, gone. What about the dazzler?
The dazzler. Dazzler wants to be noticed. They crave attention. They're warm, energetic. They're very direct. They usually want to comply. They want people to be pleased with them. They have rapid speech. And you'll know a dazzler.
Yeah, you'll know the dazzler right away because they get so excited. They got so much enthusiasm. You just can't say, whoa, back off, baby. They want attention. But notice one of the characteristics that when they mentioned, they will comply. Because they are people-focused rather than task-focused, which gives them some similar characteristics of the doubter. But by their enthusiasm and their excitement, it almost forces us to stay away, because how do you get into that windmill? And you do it by being very enthusiastic yourself. Boy, that's a good story you just told me. That sounds super. You don't tell you what, hon, let's practice this dance after we work on the flyers. Okay? Be glad to do that for you. Enthusiasm, some excitement. And you say, well, come on, I got to do this all the time? No. When you have an objective that you want to achieve, and you are willing to devote the time and the effort, and you are committed to achieving that objective, use demonstrations to get your point across. The dazzler loves to see things happen. They're a kinesthetic learner, very tactile. They want to touch things. They want to see motion, things happening all the time. And I would venture to guess that the behavior that is The dominant behavior of many square dance callers is that of a dazzler. If not necessarily when they're off the dance floor or away from the square dance hall, but when they are there. They go through a mood change as they walk through the door, don't I, dear? So, put me up on the stage and we have a lot of fun. Sit me in the back of the room, I'll probably go to sleep. As I said briefly, there are the 4 communication styles. Move in, take a hold of, and bring the difficult person back toward the behavior that is comfortable for you. And you have the decision to make. You can deal with a difficult person by fighting, becoming aggressive. You can deal with a difficult person by moving into a shell, withdrawing. Try to change their attitude. Folks, changing attitudes can't be done. It has to come from within that person. Or you can change your behavior to deal with that difficult person and communicate with that difficult person. Thank you very much. What questions do you have on how to deal with a difficult person? And how to communicate with a difficult person? Yes? Correct. Correct. You're referring to informal body space. Yes. We have space around us. Yes, I will. Thank you. Sometimes when you move into their space, you can get a hold and bring them back with you. I believe that was the statement or the comment. We have space around our body. It's called informal space, body bubbles, all kinds of different things. From the surface of our body on out to about 18 inches is called the intimate zone. And that 18 inches is reserved for very close friends, lovers, and... That's all I just said.
Telling secrets.
So if you want to violate somebody's intimate zone, tell them a secret. It's acceptable. From a stranger, psst, hey, come here. And they will move into that intimate zone. Incidentally, the intimate zone is also about the length of the arm, from the elbow to the fingertips, so that when you shake hands with someone, you are a little more than 18 inches. But if I want to get closer, no problem, because I can move forward and back. From about 18 inches on out to about 4 feet, from 18 inches on out to about, 4 feet, is called the personal zone. That's where you deal with people. That's why it's called personal. That's where you conduct most of your business. And put 2 arms together in a handshake, and we are in the personal zone. So we can either come in close to the intimate zone, or I can take a step back and go to the outer limits of the personal zone and possibly enter the social zone. The social zone goes from about 4 feet on up to about 12 feet. It's called social because that's where we deal with society. That's where we recognize people. Eye contact, hi, how are you? 12 to about 25 feet is reserved for the public, the general public. You may see somebody, you may recognize them, you may not recognize them, you may decide I'm going to avoid them, and so you look the other way. You get rid of eye contact, no eye contact involved. So one way to deal with that difficult person is to move into their zone that they are comfortable with. Now, if the dictator happens to be one of these kind of people, I told you, do it now. The dictator will move toward you. So you move toward that person, begin to mirror by doing motions to get their attention. And you will find that all of a sudden, they'll back off a little bit. Notice when you're dealing with a doubter, they have a very small, intimate zone usually. And you want to get close to them and become at least personal, if not intimate. Good comment. Thank you very much. I saw a hand from the gentleman from Arlington, Texas. The question is, what if you misread the style of the individual you're dealing with? As soon as you recognize that it is a different style, then move in that direction. If you think they're being a dictator, and I told you I want to get it done now. You say, okay, I'll go out and do it. Well, but make sure you do it right. Whoops. They just shifted, detailer. Okay, now, I understand that what you're telling me is you want me to do it now and make sure it gets done right. Now, can you show me the specs again, or what steps did you want me to follow? Detail, 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 detail. Okay. Hopefully they'll be adjacent to each other and not opposite corners. Yes, Kathy? Part of it is to get the other person's attention, and part of it has to do with how we react to one another. You know, people that have been married to each other for a long time take on the same facial expressions. They begin to look alike. Okay. They do. That's why I grew a beard.
I hope I don't grow a beard.
The mirroring makes a person feel comfortable. If any of you have ever done any negotiating, whether it be formal or informal, when two negotiators are sitting across the table from one another, it's often good to have an observer on your side of the table who is not involved in the process. You know you will have agreement when the other side, when their chief negotiator, begins to imitate or mirror unconsciously. Because when two people mirror each other, there's agreement on an issue. So it can be used more than just to get their attention. There's been a lot of interesting studies done on body language and the whole mirroring concept. First of all, mirroring is really a social dramatic technique that was developed by E. Paul Torrance at the University of Georgia. And I received some training in social dramatic techniques from Dr. Mary Murdoch at Buff State. Buff State. That sounds wholly different. They don't take their clothes off there. Buffalo State College in the Center for Studies in Creativity. It's a social dramatic technique that is not related to psychodramatic technique, but uses some of the same things. We do not talk about getting into a person's psyche and doing things with their mind. We're talking about social roles. And so mirroring is reacting to that particular social role. In addition to educational and scholarly endeavors, Alan Funt did a lot with his candid camera things. You may recall many years, Stan might recall many years ago when when Alan did a scene with actors and actresses sitting in a doctor's waiting room in their would walk into the waiting room, look around, and begin to get undressed. Now, I don't know if I'd do that or not. Depends upon who else was undressed in the waiting room, I guess. So you use the mirroring to get their attention and then also to get them into the same circle, the same style, the same quadrant that you are. You go there first, do the mirroring, and then bring them back, because they will then start to mirror your body languages. Once they realize that you're not going to give in to the ultra dictator, the ultra detailer, the ultra doubter, or the ultra dazzler, they'll move towards that nice, comfortable place in the middle with no extremes. What other questions, comments? Yes, Sue. You are the committee chair? Okay, the question was, how would you use these techniques when working with a committee? You have to decide whether the committee has a personality or there's one difficult person in the committee, or more than one difficult person in the committee. Those are the kind of times I want to get sick real fast, and say, excuse me, I got to leave. If there's one person who seems to dominate the committee action, then you begin to work with that particular person. You begin to backtrack. You begin to level by not just getting, if you're sitting at a table, not just getting eye contact, but moving into that zone. Lean toward them. And if necessary, if there's an empty chair, slide down and get next to them. And then begin to mirror their technique. There was a demonstration that was done where a young lady was talking about a new sales projection. And one of the dazzlers was sitting next to her, and she, in her presentation, forecasted a tremendous increase in sales. And the dazzler, trying to get the attention, of course, said, "Hey, with your good looks, we'll go lots of places." What did she do? She turned to him and said, "If I heard you correctly, you said that with my good looks, we're going to go places. Now, I have a question for you. What do my good looks have to do with sales projection?" He says, "Oh, never mind, forget it." And it would happen. Now, there was a little tension for a few minutes, but at least the dazzler put things back into proper perspective. Okay? Maintaining a business-like environment, not allowing the dazzler to take over the committee meeting, because that's what could have happened very easily. Okay? You just have to be more aware and more alert. When you're conducting meetings, it's very tiring because you're dealing with so many different personalities. I chaired a meeting last weekend with roughly 40 people from all over the Empire State. Good people, but different personalities. Constantly trying to be aware of what kind of style will they communicate in, and trying to mirror that style and responding to their questions, responding to their comments. Because a response to one person, a flippant response to a dazzler is okay, but a flippant response to a doubter can be devastating. Other questions, comments? Yes?
How would you handle someone that no matter what the committee suggests, they're against it, that they always see the negative of things?
The question is, how would you handle somebody who always sees the negative in a committee, and no matter what the committee says, they're always against it? One of the things that you can do is a very simple technique called yes and, to show them that you're on the same side. Yes, but. Listen to what the word but does. It immediately puts people on the defensive. We create a fence with that word but. But when we say yes and, it's going to bring in cooperation. Now, some people are just plain old rotten inside. Okay? And I don't know what to do with that person, except keep plugging away. And yes and, yes and, yes and. That sounds like a good idea. Yes and, see if we can do this also. Yes and. I recently did a workshop, a communication workshop for a group of employees at one of the companies in Buffalo. And their union president, young man, I guess about 30, really pro-union. And in the first session, I mentioned this yes and technique, and we've had 11 out of 12 sessions so far. And every session he comes in and says, "You know what I did with management last week? They proposed an idea, and I went over and said, yes and they listened to what I said." So now next month I'm starting a session for management. And I don't know whether to tell them about yes and or not. But you do have a task, and it requires a lot of concentration. Try the yes and technique. Try the yes and technique when you leave here, when you get with your spouse or your significant other, and they're doing something that you don't want to go there, but you want to go here. And I say, "Yes, that sounds like a good idea, and I would like to go here." Or, "Yes, and that is a good session. Yes, and I'm going to this session." Okay? It's a cooperative venture, not going in opposite directions. I saw a hand start to flash someplace up here in the front. Yes?
How would you deal with someone who needs their input, but they are so passive, they don't want to say, and yet you know that they have some good ideas, but you can't tell what they are, because they're just quiet.
Yeah, the question is, how do you receive input from a person who's very passive? They would rather not speak up. One technique you can use, that we use in formal brainstorming sessions, is called brain writing. People write things down. And people who are passive prefer brain writing over brainstorming. You may have heard brainstorming, and it's taken on a dirty meaning, but it was not a dirty meaning. It's a different meaning to most people. Brainstorming today to most people means, go ahead and give me all the ideas that sound good that I like. When brainstorming truly means give me all the ideas, whether they're good, bad, indifferent, no matter how ridiculous they are. So with brain writing, they get a chance to, where you just take a piece of paper. Folks, let's brainstorm this session. I'd like input from everybody. Take a piece of paper, or 4 or 5 pieces of paper, and throw them in the middle of the table. Everybody write your ideas down. Pass them on. Write one idea down. Pass it on to the next. Read the ones before you. Pass it on, or throw them across the table. Or the actual technique is to put one more piece of paper than there are people. Put the extra piece of paper in the middle. Write down 2 ideas, 3 ideas. Put the paper in the middle. Take the one from the middle. Read those and build on those ideas. So when you have a person who's really passive and you're in a committee, that's one way to get their input. The other way, well, I never stop talking, will I? The other way is to use the techniques we talked about here. Take that person aside during a break and ask them for their ideas and ask them to share. I realize that you've got some good ideas. Would you share them with me, and I'll share them with the rest of the group, because they want that intimacy. Other questions, comments? Yes. The question is, how do you deal with a person that wants to be around you, but you'd rather not be around them? Are you married to the person? Karen mentioned in the introduction we have 4 adult children. We had a real thrill about 1.5 years ago when they all moved out. And we began to really enjoy the empty nest syndrome. Well, within the last 4 months, 2 of them moved back. So I know the kind of person you're talking about. No, we're glad they're there. We just hope they'd leave. Dealing with a person that you would rather not be around, use some of the same techniques. Are they the dazzler? Are they the dictator? Are they the detailer? Are they the doubter? And move into their quadrant. Bring them back with you. The idea, the concept there is they feel very uncomfortable communicating in your style, but you have to become the dominant person, and then they will eventually try to move away from you. And I think I know some of the other kinds of people that you're talking about, that you're shadows, no matter where you go. And you go away for a weekend and you're dancing, and all of a sudden there's a bunch of people behind you. You know, you're there as a dancer, not a caller or a caller spouse. And they won't leave you alone. We have sometimes we do get sick, not feeling well, going back to the room for a while. We have elected not to deal with a difficult person. And that's number 2 in our selection. Or, how important and how influential is that person? Sometimes we put up with it, because they're the one that signed the contract. So what's your objective? What's your goal? One way in the back. Only if they've taken a session on how to deal with difficult people. The person who is process aware, and that's really what we're talking about, is the communication process. The person who's process aware will pick up on what you're doing and begin to evaluate their style and their method of communicating at that particular moment. And they will move with you because they are willing to keep the process going. You know, without communication, we're nothing, folks. And if you decide not to communicate, be a hermit. Go someplace away. So that kind of individual should not be a problem, because they will recognize it. You say, "Ooh, I guess maybe I'm this person's difficult person." And let's sit down. Let's level. Let's mirror. Let's find a common ground. And really that's what we're doing, is focusing on the commonalities of the 2 different people. One of the reasons, and I'm not a marriage counselor by any stretch of the imagination. I've made lots of mistakes. Oh dear. Well, okay.
1 or 2.
It doesn't want to be difficult. Marriages that are successful focus on those things that 2 people have in common. Think back to day one. Think back to the minus days, the negative days leading up to marriage. You had so much in common. You know, we're different people, but we like the same things. And so we got married because of those common things. But then as we get familiar with each other, we begin to focus on the differences. And we begin to move apart from each other. When if we find what's common and nurture those common things that we have, then we continue to communicate. We continue to succeed. We continue to stay in love.
Most of the time, you do want to communicate with that person. That's not to say that there are times when you just don't want to, and that's okay. You don't always have to deal with that difficult person. It's the time and the place that makes the difference.
Other questions? Yes, we have. Yes, ready to see one in the aisle. You're either going to get along very well because you enjoy that style and feel comfortable in that style, or you will polarize each other. Most of the time, you're going to get along because you have the same style. And it's amazing to watch two people who sound like they hate each other. Because, I told you to do it. Dictator.
No, I'm not going to do it.
I said yes, go ahead and do it.
No, I won't.
Well, it's going to get done one of these days. Get it done when you can, will you?
Yeah, I guess so.
Hey, honey, how you doing? Did you get it done yet?
I'm working on it.
Well, work on it, will you? They shout back and forth to one another. That's okay, because they understand each other. Or they're both very passive. Honey, did you get it done? Did you find how to do that?
Well, I will. I'm working.
Well, okay. If you I know you're busy, but if you can get it done,
yeah,
okay.
I will.
It's going to get done. But that's the style they communicate. Yeah, you can help. Yeah, fine. We had another question right here. The question is, how do you deal with two warring factions within your club? They send a person, I assume, a representative formally, but you listen to both sides because you're caught in the middle, and how do you deal with that? Warring factions within a club. Try to find the common grounds. What are they both working toward? I can give you a personal example last week. As a department chair, I have a faculty of 7. The fact that they're all women probably has nothing to do with it. But there are 2 people that just do not get along. They were on the same committee, working on the same thing. One person made a comment at the committee about getting some advice from the dean. The other person took that to mean that they want the dean's input and that they want the dean to make a decision and talk about doing some things that would be detrimental to the department. 2 opposite sides, same comment. And it took me 2 days to sit down and figure out, what am I doing here? How am I going to handle this? It worked out very well when we met with the dean to talk about the issue, and I could find those things that they both agreed on, and we proceeded from there. And when we got all done, they both kind of looked around at each other and said, I don't understand why there was a problem. Because the dean agreed to what we had said, and it was a technique. It worked. Okay? It caused me some consternation for a while, and I took a risk, to be honest with you, and that's what you have to do sometimes. You take that risk and say, I believe that these 2 people both agree on this issue, and this issue. There's a difference on the 4th item. I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on what they agree on. And we expanded that, and it worked out very well, fortunately. Other comments or questions? Karen. Keith just walked in, so be careful what you say. Okay, if I understand the question right, how does the partner fit into the program, the club, the program, whatever it may be, when they are more withdrawn, their personality is something less than a dazzler or a dictator, okay, and they're more passive? Use the strengths of the passive person. They show compassion. They're usually people-oriented. Okay? So you are the one that will take care of the problems that you get. The people will talk to you. You become, if you've got a caller-run club or a spouse-run club, as we had one time, you're the sunshine committee. You do those things that people recognize and that people appreciate. Who gets all the fame and the claim to fame? The caller's going to get that. But if the caller is smart, the caller will make sure that the spouse gets the recognition for doing those things that are people-oriented. Okay? That's a very broad and general statement. There's a few specifics in there. But you can't compete. Because as soon as you try to compete with that person on stage, you're going to lose. Because that's the one they're looking at, and that's the one they're admiring. So you compete indirectly. By taking care of the Sunshine Fund, by taking care of the club, sending out the cards, welcoming people, saying hi to them. I believe we have time for one or two more questions. It's getting close to the end. Okay. Yes, one in the back. You want the question is directed to business, and I'm sorry, what was the question? Customers and clients, the business side of calling. Okay, well, most of the stuff that I've talked about here, really, when we're doing the survey and stuff, some of you picked a difficult person that I would hope is not your spouse. Okay? And these techniques are really for business. They're more applicable to business situations, but we can make them very personal too. And one of the big mistakes we make, folks, our personal lives, we are so successful, we go over into the business world and things get so hectic. Apply what you learn from your own personal experience in dealing with people and move it into the business side. The same principles apply. People do business with people. Businesses do not do business with businesses. Whether that business is a professional business like square dance calling or something that we would consider to be conventional type of business. There was a hand in the middle here. Thank you. You've provided some very appropriate feedback. Because when I asked the question the first time, there were a few people sitting in the audience that said, should I stand or should I not stand? I mean, even those that hold the microphone. If you are a member of the organization, by the very fact that you are a member, you are a professional. And at first, when I looked out, the first time they all stood up and said, looks like the whole crowd stood up. But then when the second time, I definitely knew. There were callers who were members of CALLERLAB that did not stand up the first time. Because some of us don't recognize the fact that we are professional. Because we make money and we subscribe to a code of ethics. That's all you need to be professional. Right? That's all you need. Those are the two characteristics. You need a lot more than that. Yes. That's what I'm saying. There were a whole lot more people who stood up the second time than did the first time. Some of the wives did too. Yes. Oh, you got a wonderful husband. Yes, you have a wonderful husband. And that's I wanted to put that doubt in your mind. I wanted you to start doing some introspection and thinking, am I a professional? Shouldn't I be doing that too? Shouldn't I be considered a professional? My answer is yes. You know, I'm doing most of the talking up here now because of the question and answer session. I could have done this session by myself, couldn't I?
No.
We had a club that since I've gone back to school, we've had to cut back a little bit in our calling, and I had an A1 club. She owned it. She did everything. It wasn't a caller-run club. It was a caller spouses club. Okay? And she did all the hiring. She hired all the callers. Of course, I'm the only one who worked for nothing. But it was hers, and I consider her a very integral part of my professional activity, whether it be calling, whether it be the seminars and workshops I do on the outside. She's part of me. And there's very little going down the middle. Okay? We're together on that. We have time for one more question, and then I think we're going to have to head over to dinner, lunch. Was there another question someplace? If not. Whoops, hang on. We got to... Yeah. As a mediator, an arbitrator through the Arbitrators Association, AAA? Yes. Yes, the Arbitrators Association of America has some great stuff on mediation, and there's loads of information out in the library.
Jim.
We thank you all for coming. If you have any questions or comments, we will be here for a few minutes, and we'll be around all weekend. Whoops, hang on. Karen says hold them for a minute.
Judy is at the back door. She's going to pass out a survey sheet, and it's very important. We give these out every year. It's separate from the one CALLERLAB does, and we don't even get a good third response. Please fill these out before Wednesday and drop them in the basket back here. It's the only way we have to do your programs. And Julie Dodd will be here at 1:30 on the question the lady asked about why the partners didn't stand up.